Pablo Escobar, a name that's enough to make anyone shudder. Also, a name that left behind a not-so-desirable legacy. Call him the Medellin drug lord, the cocaine king, the twisted version of Robin Hood, or the mastermind if you must. But remember, you can kill a man, but you can't kill the diseases he already spread: greed and addiction. And that's what keeps his drug empire alive and running even today, 3 decades after his death. The big question is, who inherited Pablo Escobar's drug empire, and how do these drug cartels still operate? Most higher-ups and other partners in Escobar's drug empire were in jail after his death in 1993. Some died in prison, while others still live on, leaving their drug lord days behind. Let's look at some of the most prominent members of the cartel, sicarios who worked closely with Pablo Escobar and his family, to find out who runs Medellin if the cartel is in fact still alive, because you better believe it still is. Sicarios. Juan Diego Arquila Henya, aka El Tomate. Juan, also known as El Tomate, was one of Escobar's closest allies. He was arrested in 1992 and spent 14 years in jail before he escaped to Venezuela right after his release in 2006. A year later, in April 2007, he was shot dead in his car. John Jairo Velázquez, aka Popeye or JJ. Another important man in the Medellin cartel and Colombian hitman, John Jairo Velázquez, was arrested in 1992 and was released in 2014. He had confessed to several kidnappings, including prominent political personalities in Colombia. He had also confessed to killing 257 people and arranging 3,000 killings. He was arrested again in 2018 for extortion charges and died in prison in 2020. Dandeni Muñoz Mosquera, aka La Kika. Dandeni Muñoz Mosquera was another important member of the Medellin cartel. He was known as the chief assassin, and he had killed hundreds of people, including 40 policemen and many government officials. He was arrested in 1991 and is currently serving multiple consecutive life sentences in a prison in the United States of America. Safe to say, none of these sicarios are in control of the cartel, so what about allies and business partners? Let's begin with Carlos Leder. Carlos Enrique Leder Rivas was the co-founder of the Medellin cartel alongside Escobar. Leder was also one of the founding members of Muerte a Secuestradores, which was a paramilitary group that focused on rebellion against the abduction of cartel members and their families by the guerrillas. Before getting into the cocaine business, Leder sold stolen cars and marijuana. According to a theory supported by Escobar's head assassin, Popeye, members of the Medellin cartel wanted Leder out of the drug business due to his radical, military-like behavior. They thought it would eventually jeopardize their cocaine trade. This led to Escobar providing the police with Leder's whereabouts, leading to his capture. Leder was the first Medellin cartel leader to be captured and extradited to the United States. He was captured in Colombia in 1987 and extradited to the US to serve a life sentence, in addition to 135 years in jail. The sentence was reduced to a total of 33 years after he agreed to cooperate with the authorities, and he's now out of prison, living in Germany. According to Leder's daughter, Monica, he had been diagnosed with cancer and would be taken care of by a German charity. Jose Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, aka El Mexicano. Rodriguez moved to Medellin and formed an alliance with the Ochoa family, Pablo Escobar, and Carlos Leder to start the Medellin cartel. During the late 1970s, Rodriguez advanced in the hierarchy and discovered new trafficking routes through Mexico and into the United States, mainly Los Angeles, California, and Houston, Texas. El Mexicano was charged in Colombia and the United States for his involvement in a number of killings that included the assassination of the president of the leftist Patriotic Union Party, Jaime Pardo Leal, on October 12, 1987. Rodriguez started massacring 12 judicial officials to allegedly remove their drug business details from the judicial files. Escobar and Rodriguez contracted trained hitmen by J.R. Klein for the assassination of presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán on August 18, 1989. He was considered likely to be elected Colombia's next president. After this, Rodriguez began playing a less active role in the terrorist attacks of the Medellin cartel. The government was out to track the drug lords and their cartel and made several attempts to find him throughout 1989. Rodriguez was gunned down while escaping the police after a long chase in the same year. The Ochoa brothers, Jorge, Juan, and Fabio Ochoa. In September 1990, Colombian President Cesar Gaviria Trujillo thought that if a reduced sentence was offered to drug traffickers, they might surrender. The plan worked, and Jorge Luis Ochoa Vázquez surrendered to Colombian police in January of 1991. However, in July of 1996, Jorge Luis was released by decree after serving a mere 5.5 years in prison. He currently lives in Medellin, but says that he has nothing to do with drugs anymore. He repents that he ever had anything to do with this business. With all of that said, the damage is already done. It's also alleged that Jorge was able to keep a lot of his money with him. Elder brother of Jorge, Juan David Ochoa Vasquez, also turned himself in with his brother Jorge in 1991. And just like Jorge, he too received a short sentence of just 5 years and was released in 1996. He died of a heart attack in July 2013. Fabio Ochoa Vasquez is the youngest of the three brothers. He too had turned himself in like his brothers, but fate wasn't on his side. Unlike his older brothers Juan and Jorge, Fabio couldn't give up the drug trafficking life and continued to provide knowledge to the drug trafficking networks. He also continued to take payments for shipping cocaine. He was arrested again in 1999. He was then extradited to the United States in September of 2001 and was sentenced to 30 years in prison in 2003 for drug trafficking and distribution of cocaine in the US. Family members. Surely, if his sicarios and former business partners didn't take over the drug trade from Medellin, then his family members did, no? Let's find out. Roberto de Jesus Escobar Gaviria, aka El Osito. Escobar's brother Roberto not only co-founded the Medellin cartel, but also managed the finances and accounts for the cartel. He served a jail time of 13 years from 1993 to 2006. While it seems like he left the drug trade life behind after his release, Roberto Escobar is involved in many fraudulent acts to date. In 2014, Roberto reincorporated Escobar Inc. and registered successor and interest rights for his brother in California, United States. Escobar Inc. is a registered company in Puerto Rico and is involved in various scams. The company makes Escobar-branded smartphones and flamethrowers, and people buy them too. The only thing is that these products never reach the customer. Looks like Roberto changed his field of work, but never changed his scammy, or rather scummy, intentions. Maria Victoria Henao Vallejo.
Mister, de todas maneras, cuídense mucho, usted sabe que todos lo necesitamos.
Tranquilita, mi amor, usted sabe que yo luché por ustedes, yo no tengo otro incentivo en la vida sino luchar por ustedes. Si yo estoy metido en una cueva, estoy muy seguro, usted tranquilita que yo estoy muy seguro ya.
Maria Victoria Henao Vallejo married Escobar in 1976, when he was 26 and she was only 15. The pair had two children, Juan Pablo and Manuela. Pablo Escobar had many mistresses, and he was constantly involved in affairs. Despite his infidelity and constant affairs, he stayed married to Maria until he died. Maria claims to have privately enjoyed the luxurious lifestyle that came with Escobar's drug empire. She claims that initially, she had no idea that he was the leader of the Medellin cartel. When she got to know about his drug business, she didn't support or encourage him, but was deeply pained instead. After Escobar's death, Maria and their two children, Juan Pablo and Manuela, fled the country. They tried to seek refuge in Germany and Mozambique, but were denied, and so they finally settled in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In 1999, Maria and her son Juan Pablo were arrested on suspicion of money laundering and were imprisoned. The authorities couldn't find their involvement in Escobar's work or crimes, and so they were released after 18 months. In a 2018 interview with Colombia's W Radio, Maria Victoria Henao Vallejo publicly apologized for her late husband's wrongdoing. None of Escobar's two children chose the path he did. They went on to lead normal lives. His widow, Maria, wrote a book called Mrs. Escobar, My Life with Pablo. His son, Juan Pablo, changed his name to Sebastián Marroquín and released a book titled Pablo Escobar, My Father, in 2014. In the book, he describes how the infamous drug lord was a ruthless criminal but a loving father at the same time. There's not much known about his other siblings, Luis Fernando Escobar Gaviria, Alba Escobar Gaviria, Gloria Inés Escobar Gaviria, Argemiro Escobar Gaviria, and Luz Maria Escobar. As you can see, the Medellin cartel slowly broke down after Pablo Escobar's death in 1993. Other cartels like the Cali cartel and the Norte de Valle cartel rose to take over the infamous drug trade in Colombia, but none could reach the height that Pablo's empire did, and his family basically want nothing to do with a business that brought as much pain as it did wealth. But did the drug trade stop? Did things change for the better, or did they take an even darker tone? The New Boys. La Oficina de Envigado. La Oficina de Envigado was founded as a collections arm of Escobar's Medellin cartel. The cartel is still in operation, but now it mainly focuses on providing services to low-level drug traffickers and groups. It operates in the cities of Medellin and Envigado and positions itself as the chief mediator and debt collector in any disputes related to drug trafficking in Colombia. La Oficina de Envigado still maintains a strong connection with the Colombian government. While on the outside, this may seem like the drug trade has reduced, that's not the truth. Narco trafficking hasn't gone down, but just has become more stealthy and less violent than it was during Escobar's reign as a drug king. We're taking down cartels, and another cartel is born, and what we tell people is, as long as there's demand for this nasty type of drugs that are out there, there's going to be people that are going to take a chance in sending their dope to make a quick dollar. Javier Peña, a US Drug Enforcement Administration agent who worked on both the Escobar and the Cali cartel cases, said on the Cypher Brief podcast, "The drug traffickers have not stopped. They probably never will. They've simply adapted their operations to the current times, making making the trade even more difficult to crack, pun intended. They don't have large, easy-to-track labs anymore. They operate from home kitchens in Medellin. These are the new, smaller labs dotted across Colombia in residential properties that one can't even lay a speck of doubt on. They also operate from mangroves in small Colombian ports, where some of the darkest secrets of the narco trade are well kept. Mangrove swamps surround the small port city of Tumaco that sits by the Pacific Ocean. Hidden from everyone's eyes, and even from the satellites, something is being built inside these mangroves. A stealthy and dark secret that only the trusted few have access to. The semi-submersible cocaine submarines. The drug cartels that still operate, and the gangs that succeeded Pablo Escobar in the drug business, chose these mangroves for the construction of these million-dollar cocaine submarines. This is not only because the mangroves provide secrecy from the public or legal eye, but also because they're in close proximity to the cocaine cooking labs. They're also connected to various points in the Pacific Ocean, which makes it easy to smuggle cocaine. Each submarine takes about 4 months to build, and since these subs are meant to carry cocaine, they're watched over by around 50 men who are armed with AK-47s and Israeli Galil assault rifles. This is to protect the cocaine-carrying submarine if they're ever busted. And if these submarines are ever found out by the authorities out in the sea, they're designed to sink to destroy any evidence of the cartel. This is the level of detail these submarines are built with. There's no way to ever be seized. From home kitchens and forests to the waters, drug lords will take any route to seal the deal. What's really at stake here? The millions and billions of dollars, or the millions of young lives that are destroyed by drug addiction? Where does it end? As long as there will be demand for drugs, there will be someone out there ready to rake in the millions. Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel drug empire was just a catalyst, helping feed the real devil within. Following the fall of the Medellin cartel, there were others, and then there were some more. There will always be more. Name the devil Pablo Escobar if you must, but when you drop the mask, all you'll see is addiction. If you'd like to delve into the details of the underworld and dark mysteries, then click on one of the video cards on your screen to watch more.
Life can be great, but not when you can't see it. So open your eyes to life, to see it in the vivid colors that God gave us as a precious gift to His children, to enjoy life to the fullest and to make it count. Say yes to your life, and when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.